My son started calling me Sharon. After his teacher said mom, reinforced a power dynamic, then told me I was surveillance abusing him for asking if he got home safe. When I finally asked him why he believed her, he whispered, because she loves me and you just need me. I didn't say a word. That was 2 years ago. This morning, he called to tell me his support group is adding another chair for a boy named Nathan. When my 16-year-old Luke came home spouting phrases like emotional incest and mother wound, I assumed he'd discovered therapy TikTok. Then he mentioned Ms. Carney taught him these terms during their healing circles in AP English. Madeline Carney was the golden goose of my son's high school, known as the teacher who shut Ivy League acceptance letters. She was 45, childless, and intense. She collected broken kids like limited edition Funkos. After my husband died, she apparently decided Luke was exactly the right amount of damage to add to her collection. Lucky me. The warning signs came dressed as progress. Luke started journaling religiously in a black notebook he guarded like nuclear codes. His phone buzzed with Discord notifications from Carney's private server because nothing says appropriate teacher boundaries like channels named Toxic Parent Confessions and Breaking the Cycle. He went from calling me mom to Sharon, explaining that Carney said using parental titles reinforced unhealthy power dynamics. I bit my tongue so hard I tasted pennies. I didn't want to lash out and tell him he was wrong. I was so scared of losing him. I came to regret that. Parent-teacher conferences arrived like a colonoscopy, necessary but violating. Carney presented Luke's growth portfolio. It had essays about my suffocating grief, charts tracking his anxiety levels versus time spent at home and at school, and my personal favorite, a poem titled Drowning in Her Tears While Mine Go Unnoticed. She slid over a permission form for extended mentoring that would let her make educational decisions without my interference, smiling like she was offering me a gift card to Target instead of asking me to sign away my parental rights. When I declined her generous offer to steal my son's mind, she weaponized him like an emotional teenage sewer slide bomber. Luke would say, Madeline says asking about my day 3 times is anxiety-driven harassment. Madeline says making me text when I arrive places is surveillance abuse. Madeline says real mothers celebrate their children leaving, not cry about it. Every family dinner became a psychological autopsy, where Luke diagnosed my codependent patterns between bites of the lasagna I'd made because it was his favorite, though apparently that was just more evidence of my love bombing. Then I got some hope. I found Claire through the Single Moms Facebook group. Her son had been in Carney's class 2 years prior. She convinced Kevin I was borderline abusive. Claire told me over wine that tasted like despair. Testified in the custody hearing. Kevin lives with his dad now and posts Instagram quotes about breaking generational curses. But apparently he still meets with Carney at hotels. 3 other moms had similar stories. The night I found Luke at 2 a.m. packing a go bag, according to Carney's emergency escape plan for toxic households, something in me snapped like a rubber band that had been stretched since my husband's funeral. He stood there reciting Carney's words like a haunted doll. Your emotional dysregulation is triggering my flight response. Madeline says this proves I need distance. I blocked the door and did what any rational mother would do. I called in sick for 3 days and literally deprogrammed my child like he'd joined a cult, which essentially he had. The breakthrough came when I asked him to explain, in his own words, what emotional incest meant. He stuttered, recycled Carney's phrases, then finally admitted he didn't actually know. Just that Carney said our relationship qualified. That's when the real conversation started. The ones where my son slowly remembered he used to like having a mom who gave a shot about him. Getting him out of Carney's class required filing complaints with everyone short of the Pope. The school couldn't touch her. Her students' college acceptance rates were their crown jewel, but they agreed to a schedule change if Luke underwent real therapy with someone who didn't have toxic parents on their recommended reading list. Recovery took months. He'd flinch when I said love you, then apologize for flinching, then cry about being so messed up he couldn't accept maternal affection. Carney had done a number on him that would make military-grade psychological warfare look like a stern talking to. Then, one morning, Luke got a text from an unknown number asking if he was willing to join a joint suit against Carney. While I thought he'd be eager, he told me that he didn't want to betray someone he loved. I reminded him that what they had wasn't real love. He handed me his phone saying, this might change your mind. As I looked at the picture of Carney holding a pregnancy stick, I realized our lives might not be rid of her just yet. I stared at that pregnancy test photo until my eyes burned. The 2 pink lines might as well have been prison bars. My hands shook as I handed Luke's phone back to him. He took it and immediately started shredding tissues from the box on the kitchen counter, his breathing coming in short bursts that transported me back to watching his father's chest rise and fall those final moments in the hospital. The same panicked rhythm, the same helpless sound. I forced myself to move, to think, to process what this meant. Carney pregnant, the timing suspicious, the implications devastating. My phone buzzed, another notification from the school's Facebook page. I almost ignored it, but the preview caught my eye. Preparing for life changes. I clicked through to Carney's post. There she stood, one hand resting on what might have been the slightest bump, her smile radiating that particular glow people associate with expectant mothers. The comments flooded in, hearts, congratulations, offers of baby clothes from other teachers. Luke watched me scroll, still destroying tissues methodically. The pile of white shreds grew between us like snow. I needed vitamins. That's what I told myself as I grabbed my keys. Just regular vitamins from the pharmacy. Nothing to do with needing to move, to act, to do something other than sit in this kitchen watching my son fall apart. The pharmacy's fluorescent lights made everything look sick. I wandered the aisles, pretending to compare calcium supplements while my mind raced. Then I saw her. Carney stood in the next aisle, studying prenatal vitamin bottles with the concentration of someone defusing a bomb. Our eyes met over the vitamin display. Her hand moved unconsciously to her stomach in that protective gesture I'd seen 1,000 times from pregnant women. Neither of us spoke. The pharmacist worked nearby, organizing prescriptions. Other shoppers pushed carts past us. We just stared. The words erupted from me before I could stop them. You're using that baby to manipulate him. My voice carried further than intended. A woman examining cold medicine turned to stare. The pharmacist looked up from his counting. Carney's expression shifted to practiced concern. Sharon, I understand you're going through a difficult time, but this harassment from unstable parents needs to stop. She said it just loud enough for everyone to hear. Calm, measured, professional. I opened my mouth to respond, but my phone rang. Claire's name flashed on the screen. Sharon, I need you. Her voice cracked. Kevin's locked himself in the bathroom. He says if he can't see her, he doesn't want to live anymore. The vitamin bottle slipped from my hand, clattering on the linoleum. Carney watched me scramble to pick it up. up, her expression unreadable. "I'm coming," I told Claire, already moving toward the exit. At home, I shoved my investigation files into my desk drawer and locked it. The key went on my keyring. Luke sat exactly where I'd left him, the tissue pile now mountain-sized. "I have to help Claire," I said. "Her son needs..." "Go." Luke didn't look up. "I'm fine." I knew he wasn't. But Claire's son had a knife, and my son only had tissues. The drive to Claire's took 12 minutes. I spent them replaying Carney's hand gesture in the pharmacy, how her fingers had spread across her stomach, the same way she'd touched Luke's shoulder during parent-teacher conferences. Possessive, proprietary. Claire met me at the door, mascara streaking her cheeks. "He won't come out. He keeps saying she's the only one who understands him." We talked Kevin down together. Claire through the door while I called 911 on standby. 2 hours of negotiation. 2 hours of promises and pleading. 2 hours while Carney posted on the school Facebook page. By the time Kevin finally unlocked the door and collapsed into his mother's arms, my phone had 17 notifications, all from the same post. "Starting a family despite workplace harassment," Carney had written. "Grateful for the support of our amazing school community during this challenging time." The comments poured sympathy like honey. Parents who didn't know offered prayers and congratulations. Teachers rallied around their colleague. Someone started a meal train. My phone rang again. Luke's therapist, then my boss, then an unknown number that left a voicemail about urgent legal matters regarding your lawsuit. I silenced them all. Kevin needed us. Claire needed me. Everything else could wait. But while I sat on Claire's bathroom floor, helping her hold her broken son, Carney's narrative spread through social media like wildfire. The concerned teacher, the miracle pregnancy, the unstable mother making wild accusations. Luke found the desk key while I was gone. I discovered this later, when I finally made it home after midnight. The drawer stood open, files scattered across my bedroom floor. His journal, the black one he'd guarded so carefully, lay among them, pages torn out. The remaining entries were visible, though I didn't touch them. Entries about M, dated during the week of his father's funeral. While I'd been planning a memorial service, she'd been planning something else entirely. Talk about a teacher who takes extra credit to a whole new level. Ms. Carney's collecting damaged kids like their Pokemon cards, and Luke just became her shiny Charizard. The next morning brought 3 crises simultaneously. Luke's therapist called about missed appointments. My boss threatened termination for excessive absences. The lawsuit contact demanded immediate response or they'd proceed without us. I chose work. Claimed family emergency to explain the absences, which was true. But in Carney's narrative, it became evidence of an unstable mother inserting herself in others' children's lives. At school, Carney had what witnesses described as a genuine panic attack when a student asked about her pregnancy. The nurse was called. Teachers comforted her. The principal sent an email about supporting our staff during personal challenges. Luke told his therapist that Carney had helped him process his dad's death when mom couldn't. The therapist made notes. Those notes would surface later. When Luke asked me to help carry trash bags to the curb, his old journal tumbled out. The pages about Carney had been torn away, leaving jagged edges like broken teeth. Taking it would violate our fragile trust. Leaving it felt like abandoning evidence. I chose trust. But the security guard on routine patrol caught me trying to photograph the torn edges through Luke's car window. The footage made me look exactly like what Carney claimed, an obsessed mother stalking her son's teacher. Luke's college counselor needed Carney's recommendation letter for early admission deadlines. Without it, his applications would be incomplete. She had him trapped between his future and his mother. My sister called that evening. "This reminds me of Mom," she said carefully. "Remember after Dad died, how she saw conspiracies everywhere?" The comparison hit like ice water. Our mother had spent her final years convinced the doctors had culled our father, that everyone was lying to her. We'd watched her spiral into paranoia, alienating everyone who tried to help. "This is different," I insisted. "Is it?" My sister's silence said everything. The school parent WhatsApp group exploded with screenshots from the pharmacy. Unhinged grocery store confrontation, they called it. That poor pregnant teacher being stalked. My attempts to contact other affected families triggered an official complaint. The school characterized it as coordinating a harassment campaign against a pregnant employee. Then I discovered Carney still had my husband's guitar. Luke had lent it for a class project months ago. She held it hostage until tensions calmed down. That same day, I learned Luke had added her to our family Spotify plan without my knowledge. She had access to our playlists, our listening history, our shared memories in song form. Exhaustion finally caught me at a red light. I dozed off waiting for green. Other drivers assumed I was hammered. The video hit the neighborhood watch page within hours. Concerned about impaired driving near school zones, Emma came by that night, my best friend since college, the one person who'd never doubted me. She sat on my couch, twisting her wedding ring. "I believe something's wrong with that teacher," she said. "But my husband, he's threatening divorce if I keep getting involved in this drama." I watched her leave, another support beam removed from my collapsing life. The coffee shop barista mentioned it the next morning. "Customers are switching lines to avoid the crazy mom who attacked that pregnant teacher. She didn't know I could hear her." At the library, whispered conversations included my name, Sharon, unstable, harassment, pregnant teacher. Carney claimed she'd been at the school play during the alleged hotel meeting with Kevin. The security footage from that date had mysteriously corrupted. Only one angle remained, showing someone who might have been her, or might not. Luke's girlfriend's mother admitted she needed Carney's connection at her dream college. Her daughter's future depended on that recommendation letter. I finally proved Carney had lied about a conference date, but revealing this exposed that I'd missed 5 of Luke's games that month while investigating. Being right made me look like a negligent mother. The Ring doorbell caught my brief smile after exposing the lie. In Carney's narrative, it became evidence of a mother taking pleasure in attacking a pregnant woman. Then came the text. Not from the lawsuit group or concerned parents or school officials. From Carney herself. "We both love Luke. Soon I'll have my own child who'll need protecting too. Clear. Director." A declaration of war from a woman who held my son's future in her manicured hands while claiming to carry new life in her womb. I need to continue this story from where it left off, focusing on action and events while following the 100-hit plot structure for beats 26 to 75. The grief counselors support group met every Thursday evening in the church basement. I arrived to find Carney already there, sitting beside a man I recognized as the counselor's brother. She wore my husband's favorite Springsteen concert shirt, the one Luke must have given her. The counselor's brother leaned close to her, their chemistry undeniable as she quoted lyrics from The River while touching her stomach. I turned and left without entering. The support system I'd relied on for 18 months had just become enemy territory. Luke's polygraph appointment came the following week. I drove him to the exam examiner's office, watching his leg bounce nervously against the car door. The examiner emerged 2 hours later with inconclusive results. Luke showed deception indicators when denying recent contact with Carney. She showed similar indicators when claiming Luke had begged her not to abandon him. The truth lay somewhere in their contradictions. That evening, I searched through old text messages for ammunition. Instead, I found my own words from the week after my husband's funeral. Messages thanking Carney for being there for Luke when I couldn't function, praising her dedication, encouraging their connection. My grief-stricken gratitude now weaponized against me. Luke's grandmother called the next morning. She'd enjoyed a lovely visit from Madeline at the senior center. Such a thoughtful young woman, bringing homemade cookies and concern about our family situation. My mother-in-law mentioned I'd been drinking heavily the day of the funeral, something Madeline had observed with worry. I hadn't touched alcohol since my husband's death, but the seed was planted. The suspicious car I'd noticed circling our block belonged to Luke, according to our neighbor's security footage. Multiple recordings showed him sneaking out after midnight, returning before dawn. Meeting Carney, the timestamp suggested. My failure to supervise became another documented failing. Family court scheduled an emergency custody evaluation after Luke's grandmother filed concerns. The evaluator characterized my accusations against Carney as attempts to alienate Luke from a positive mentor figure. The hearing date loomed while evidence of my instability mounted. I still had admin access to the school's cloud storage from when I'd helped my husband grade papers. Late one night, I locked Carney out of her teaching resources. The browser's autocomplete revealed my husband's final searches concerning student boundaries, mandatory reporting-teacher relationships, how to document inappropriate conduct. He'd known. He'd been building a case weeks before his death. The pregnancy announcement timing suddenly made sense. Carney had posted about her miracle baby exactly 3 days after receiving notice of the potential lawsuit. Strategic timing disguised as joyful news. My therapist received a subpoena the following week. The opposing counsel wanted records of our sessions, particularly any statements about my obsession with Carney. Professional confidentiality meant nothing in custody battles. I attempted to record our next phone conversation, but Carney spotted the app notification immediately. She pivoted smoothly to expressing concern about my mental health, making the recording attempt look like entrapment. Every move I made strengthened her position. The chemistry teacher who'd witnessed concerning interactions chose silence after receiving an anonymous Title IX complaint about his own conduct. He had 2 kids in college and couldn't risk his pension over someone else's drama. Another potential ally neutralized. I noticed my husband's watch on Carney's wrist during a school event. The engraved timepiece that had vanished from his desk after his death. Luke had gifted it as a thank you for her support. She wore it like a trophy. When I found homework papers in Luke's backpack, they carried the faint scent of my husband's cologne, the same scent that had faded from his pillow months ago, but somehow lingered on assignments from Carney's class. She texted me directly with an offer, complete withdrawal from Luke's life if I drop a lawsuit, and publicly admitted to misunderstanding a mentoring relationship. The price of peace was my complete capitulation. I refused. The parent Facebook page immediately featured posts about a mother choosing vengeance over her son's mental health. Comments poured in about the damage vindictive parents caused during divorce and custody battles. Security footage proved I'd been wrong about one detail. The hotel meeting with Kevin had happened at a different location on the same date. Being partially wrong undermined everything else I'd documented. The pattern of afternoon meetings became clear across multiple properties, but my initial error discredited the pattern. Luke and I discovered his father's work notebook during a garage cleaning session. Unlike the home journal, this contained detailed documentation of Carney's concerning behavior, professional observations written in his precise handwriting, evidence he'd never brought home. But the notebook also revealed my husband's attempts to help Carney with legitimate infertility struggles. Something's odd about how Carney keeps showing up in every single support system Sharon tries to use. The grief counselor, the grandmother, even wearing the husband's watch like she's collecting pieces of their family. Years of failed treatments, devastating miscarriages, the toll on her mental health, his compassion for a colleague's pain, twisted into evidence of an inappropriate relationship. My mother faced an impossible choice when Luke threatened to cut contact if she supported my vendetta. She chose neutrality, limiting both my childcare options and emotional support. Another family relationship sacrificed to Carney's manipulation. I manufactured reasons to visit school, befriending the attendant secretary and volunteering for every possible event. Information gathering disguised as parental involvement. The secretary mentioned Carney's frequent afternoon absences, always returning with Luke. A legitimate stress-related health issue brought me to the fertility clinic. Carney sat in the waiting room, genuinely pregnant and genuinely fragile. We pretended not to see each other while nurses watched our careful non-interaction. 2 women destroyed by different losses, united in mutual destruction. The timeline Carney had shared publicly didn't match her pregnancy dating. She'd claimed the relationship with my husband started months after the possible conception window. Mathematics exposed what emotions couldn't prove. Luke's paternal grandparents emerged from their grief-imposed isolation, demanding custody rights. They cited my instability and Carney's inappropriate influence equally. Fighting a 2-front custody war meant strategic choices. I missed Luke's college interview while meeting with lawyers. The admissions file noted, parent declined to attend. My credit cards maxed out from legal fees, while Carney's GoFundMe for a teacher persecuted while pregnant raised thousands. The community rallied around the expectant mother facing harassment. The confrontation at my husband's favorite restaurant wasn't planned. Carney sat at our anniversary table, ordering his usual meal. I lost control, screaming accusations while other diners filmed. The waitress who'd served us for 15 years cried as security escorted me out. My boss called the next morning. The viral video had reached major clients. My position was eliminated effective immediately, though they'd already interviewed my replacement. She started Monday, before anyone discovered her connection to Carney's college roommate. Claire offered her couch when my landlord declined to renew my lease. Property management cited ongoing legal issues affecting building reputation. Meanwhile, Carney House sat for vacationing neighbors 3 blocks from my former home. My father's intervention came with an ultimatum. Let this go and focus on keeping Luke, or lose what remained of our family. His words echoed through every sleepless night on Claire's lumpy sofa. The investigation I'd started caused an innocent first-year teacher to face suspension. She'd witnessed concerning behavior but hadn't reported it, fearing career sewer slide. Her daughter's tearful question about why mommy couldn't buy Christmas presents haunted my conscience. The suspended teacher's marriage counseling bills mounted as her husband demanded she cut ties with me. Another casualty in a war I no longer controlled. I continued pursuing evidence despite the wreckage accumulating around me. Luke asked the question during our first honest conversation in months. What if Miss Carney really was just trying to help? His genuine confusion cut deeper than any accusation. I couldn't answer without sounding like the paranoid mother everyone believed me to be. Public admission became strategic necessity. I acknowledged missing signs of my husband's depression to maintain credibility about missing signs with Luke. Personal failure as evidence of pattern recognition. The USB drive surfaced in my husband's work locker, discovered by a colleague cleaning out the space. Files labeled MC Concerns contained recordings of Carney discussing her special relationship with Luke. My husband's voice, carefully documenting inappropriate boundaries. Evidence he'd hidden even from me. Carney's lawyer filed an emergency injunction citing pregnancy complications from stress. My lawyer was in depositions for another case, leaving me to respond alone. Legal maneuvering designed to exhaust resources I no longer possessed. The recordings revealed Carney's genuine belief that she was meant to be Luke's real mother. Years of watching me struggle had convinced her that divine intervention had placed her in his path. Delusion mixed with deliberate manipulation. Her private journals, subpoenaed during discovery, showed the terrifying blend of obsession and care. Pages describing Luke's self-harm that I'd never known about. Interventions that had genuinely saved him while simultaneously binding him to her. Predator and savior weren't mutually exclusive. Violating Luke's privacy became necessary to establish grooming patterns. I searched his room during therapy appointments, photographing evidence while hating myself. The mother who'd respected boundaries died, replaced by someone who'd win at any cost. Carney's mother contacted me voluntarily. Her daughter's behavior patterns stretched back decades, always focusing on vulnerable young men who'd lost fathers. The pregnancy timeline details she provided confirmed what I'd suspected about conception dates. A mother betraying her daughter to protect an unborn grandchild. I discovered Carney's car in the cemetery parking lot during my weekly visit. We'd been bringing flowers on different schedules, both claiming connection to my husband's memory. The groundskeeper mentioned we were both regulars, sometimes missing each other by minutes. The judge considered Carney's counterclaim that my harassment had endangered her pregnancy. Medical records documented genuine complications requiring bed rest. My pursuit of justice reframed as assault on an unborn child. Everything hinged on Luke's testimony. Would he speak honestly about the relationship's progression? His loyalty torn between the mother who'd raised him and the teacher who'd saved him. The courtroom's pressure would reveal which bond proved stronger. Carney's nephew approached me at the grocery store. I'd tutored him in math the previous year, helping him pass algebra when his family couldn't afford a professional tutor. His innocent question about why I was being mean to Aunt Maddie cut deeper than any adult accusation. School board members chose sides based on their children's college prospects. Those with kids in Carney's pipeline to elite universities defended her. Those whose children had graduated felt free to express concerns. Educational politics trumped child protection. The judge's preliminary ruling devastated my case. Emotional manipulation wasn't illegal without proof of physical relationship. Inappropriate didn't mean criminal without evidence of sexual contact. The law's limitations mocked my husband's careful documentation. I called in my husband's work mentor, collecting on a posthumous favor. He owed my husband for decades of friendship and professional support. The forensic accountant he provided uncovered financial improprieties in Carney's tutoring business, but wouldn't testify about personal relationships. Financial records revealed my husband's final project. He'd been investigating Carney's departure from her previous school when depression overtook him. The unfinished investigation represented his last attempt to protect Luke before darkness claimed him. The financial records painted a devastating picture. My husband had withdrawn $8,000 from our retirement fund 3 weeks before his death, hiring a private investigator to examine Carney's previous school departure. The investigation stopped when he died. The PI refused to release findings without payment of the remaining balance. I scraped together $3,000 by selling my wedding ring and borrowed the rest from my father, who made me promise this would be my final expenditure on this obsession. The PI's report arrived encrypted, requiring my husband's work password to open. Luke remembered the password, his middle name plus the date we'd adopted our first dog. Inside, documentation showed Carney had left her previous position after similar concerns were raised about a student named Nathan. No charges filed. The family had moved out of state. My husband's therapist finally returned my calls after his office received the court order. Legal precedent allowed disclosure when protecting a minor from potential harm. I drove to his office, hands shaking as I signed consent forms. The session notes revealed my husband's torment. He discovered Carney's pattern but felt too depressed to act decisively. Each entry showed his internal battle. Protect Luke or avoid confrontation that might worsen his mental state. The final entry, dated 2 days before his death, simply read, "I'm failing him." I sat in the therapist's parking lot, understanding finally why my husband had hidden the investigation. He'd been drowning in depression while trying to save our drowning son. The weight of that knowledge pressed against my chest. Back at Claire's apartment, I spread out every piece of evidence across her kitchen table. Travel records from my husband's employer showed he'd been at a conference in Chicago during Carney's claimed conception window. Hotel receipts, conference attendance logs, credit card statements showing meals for one. Carney's pregnancy timeline placed conception during a weekend she'd later claimed they'd spent together. But my husband had been 800 miles away, presenting a paper on educational assessment strategies. The math was irrefutable. Her lawyer's next filing accused me of obtaining evidence through illegal means. The school's IT department launched an investigation into the cloud access. I received notice that criminal charges might follow for unauthorized computer access. Luke's testimony date approached. His therapist worked with him on separating Carney's genuine help from her manipulation. So Luke's password was his middle name plus their first dog's adoption date? That's peak dad security right there. Bet the recovery question was, what's your favorite fishing spot too? He practiced stating facts without emotion, though his hands still shook when discussing certain memories. The night before court, Luke showed me scars on his forearm I'd never seen. Carney had found him cutting in the school bathroom 6 months after his father's death. She'd cleaned the wounds, bought him proper supplies, checked daily. She'd saved him when I'd been too lost in grief to notice he was drowning. I held my son while he sobbed, both of us understanding the terrible complexity. Carney had been both savior and predator. The truth wasn't clean or simple. The courtroom filled with familiar faces choosing sides. Teachers who needed Carney's college connections sat behind her. Parents who'd lost children to her influence sat behind me. Luke sat exactly between us, as the judge had ordered. Both legal teams presented opening statements. Mine focused on patterns of inappropriate boundaries. Hers emphasized a dedicated teacher persecuted by a grieving, unstable mother. The judge took notes without expression. Luke took the stand first. His voice cracked, describing the confusion between mentorship and manipulation. He admitted Carney had saved his life. life. He also described how she'd isolated him from me, convinced him I was toxic, encouraged dependence on her approval. The judge asked Luke directly about their relationship's nature. Luke's answer came slowly, carefully. He described emotional intimacy that felt parental but wrong, late-night texts about personal things, meetings that felt necessary but secret, love that felt real but constructed. Carney's mother took the stand next. Her testimony revealed decades of similar patterns: vulnerable young men, savior complex, relationships that bordered on inappropriate but never quite crossed legal lines. She'd tried interventions before. They'd never worked. The IT director testified about the Discord server data. Screenshots showed conversations encouraging students to document parental abuse, channels devoted to escaping toxic homes, resources for divorce-proofing relationships with mentors, all authenticated, all damning. Financial forensics revealed Carney's tutoring business had preferentially admitted students from broken homes, fee waivers for those dealing with loss, extra sessions for those with difficult home situations, a pattern of targeting vulnerability disguised as charity. The judge called a recess. In the bathroom, I overheard two teachers discussing how they'd missed the signs. One mentioned Carney's intensity had always seemed like dedication. The other wondered aloud how many students they'd failed to protect. Carney took the stand after lunch, her pregnancy visible under her conservative dress. She presented as a dedicated educator persecuted for caring too much. She admitted to close relationships with students but framed them as appropriate mentoring. Under cross-examination, cracks appeared. She couldn't explain the conception timeline discrepancy. She claimed memory gaps about specific dates. When presented with my husband's travel records, she suggested he'd lied about the conference. The forensic accountant testified about financial irregularities in her tutoring business, cash payments from parents that didn't match reported income, gifts from grateful families that exceeded normal boundaries, a pattern of financial enmeshment with student families. My testimony came last. I stuck to facts, fighting the urge to emotional appeals. Yes, I'd made mistakes while grieving. Yes, I'd initially encouraged their relationship. No, I hadn't recognized the warning signs until too late. The judge asked about my husband's investigation. I presented the PI's report, the therapist's notes, the evidence he'd gathered before depression claimed him. I kept my voice steady, describing how he died trying to protect Luke while battling his own demons. Closing arguments highlighted the case's complexity. No criminal conduct proven, no physical relationship established, but clear evidence of emotional manipulation, boundary violations, and targeting of vulnerable minors. The law's limitations versus ethical obligations. The judge's ruling came 3 hours later. Carney would face professional review but no criminal charges. Custody would remain with me, with mandatory family therapy. A restraining order would prevent contact between Carney and Luke until he turned 18. Carney's teaching license would face review by the state board. The school district would conduct its own investigation. Parents would be notified about the Discord server and given resources for discussing appropriate boundaries with their children. Outside the courthouse, the community divided visibly. Some parents hugged me, sharing their own concerns they'd been afraid to voice. Others glared, convinced I'd destroyed a dedicated teacher's life over jealousy and grief. Luke and I walked to the car in silence. He'd testified truthfully, knowing it would affect his college prospects. Carney's recommendation letter would never come. His early admission dreams had evaporated on the witness stand. That evening, Luke's grandparents called. They'd watched the proceedings and recognized their son's protective instincts in my actions. They offered to help with college tuition, wanting to honor their son's final investigation. The school board meeting the following week overflowed with parents. Some demanded Carney's immediate termination. Others insisted she'd been victimized by a vindictive parent. The board voted to place her on administrative leave pending investigation. Carney's baby arrived 2 months later. Her mother sent me a single text. "It's a boy. She's named him after your husband." I deleted it without responding, focusing on Luke's recovery. The suspended teacher from my investigation was reinstated after review. She approached me at the grocery store, not to blame, but to thank me. The investigation had revealed other concerns she'd been afraid to report. Sometimes destruction cleared the path for truth. Luke's college path shifted. Without Carney's connections, he faced realistic options. State school instead of Ivy League. Merit scholarships instead of prestigious recommendations. He seemed relieved by the reduced pressure. Family therapy revealed depths of manipulation I'd missed. The therapist helped us untangle Carney's influence from genuine growth. Some insights she'd provided were valid. Others were weapons disguised as wisdom. Sorting truth from manipulation took months. 6 months later, Nathan's family contacted me. They'd followed the case from across the country. Their son was finally ready to share his experience. His testimony to the state board would prove crucial in the license review. The district implemented new policies about teacher-student communication, clear boundaries for social media interaction, mandatory reporting for concerning relationship dynamics, training for recognizing emotional manipulation, small changes that might protect future students. Luke graduated without fanfare. No valedictorian speech or special recognition, just a diploma earned through struggle and survival. Carney wasn't there to see it. The restraining order held. At graduation dinner, Luke gave me a letter. Inside, his own words about our journey. No therapy speak or borrowed phrases. Just a son thanking his mother for fighting when he couldn't see the danger, for finishing what his father started. I returned to work eventually, finding employment at a nonprofit supporting families in crisis. Lower pay, but meaningful purpose. My experience, however painful, helped others recognize warning signs. 2 years later, Luke called from college. He joined a support group for students who'd experienced teacher manipulation. He wasn't the only one with a story. He wasn't the only one healing. Carney moved out of state according to Claire's sources. Online teaching only, under supervision. Her son lived primarily with his grandmother. The cycle, at least partially, interrupted. I kept my husband's final investigation files in a safety deposit box. Evidence of his last act of protection, even as depression consumed him. Proof that love persists through darkness. Imperfect, but enduring. The community never fully healed. PTA meetings carried underlying tension between those who'd supported Carney and those who'd seen the truth. Some friendships ended permanently. Others deepened through shared recognition of missed warnings. Luke and I rebuilt slowly. Trust grew through consistent actions, not grand gestures. He called me mom again, eventually. I learned to give him space without abandoning vigilance. We found balance in the aftermath. Some nights I wondered about Carney's son, an innocent child born into a complex situation. His grandmother's love might break the pattern, or history might repeat despite everyone's best efforts. Time would tell. Justice came not as victory, but as prevention. Future students protected by policies written in Luke's pain. Other families spared through awareness born from our struggle. Imperfect systems improved through documented failure. I never remarried or dated seriously. Trust, once shattered, rebuilt slowly and incompletely. But Luke thrived in college, forming healthy relationships with appropriate boundaries. My husband's final investigation had achieved its purpose. The story spread through parent networks, a cautionary tale about missing warnings and institutional failures. Not fame or recognition, just quiet awareness that helped others protect their children. Sometimes that's enough. Looking back, I see the price of truth. Lost friendships, financial ruin, professional destruction, but also my son's freedom, other children's protection, and the completion of my husband's final act of love. The cost was everything. It was worth it. Thanks for letting me wonder about all these things with you today. It's been quite a journey asking questions together. Until we meet again.